Metroid Dread is actually real now. I thought that was a myth. Sure enough, Metroid Dread is coming out this year, and Mercury Steam is making it alongside Yoshio Sakamoto and Nintendo. This was a game that was supposedly in the works for the Nintendo DS about 15 years ago. So what made it take so long? Well, following Metroid Zero Mission's release on Game Boy Advance in 2004, Sakamoto struggled to make another Metroid game for a handful of years. There is an easy answer for what made this tough. In 2004, the same year Zero Mission launched, Nintendo, under new president Satoru Iwata, reorganized the structure of the development teams. Nintendo R&D 1, the team Sakamoto had been a part of since the 80s, was no more. It was absorbed into Software Planning and Development, or SPD, which was focused on supervising the production of games from second and third-party studios. While every so often SPD would develop their own game, the nature of the team that worked on Zero Mission wasn't to make their own games, but to work with other developers like Intelligent Systems, Monolith Soft, and Next Level Games. That meant that the team who made every Metroid game not made by Retro Studios in Texas was essentially no more. It didn't really exist after 2004. That's a large part of the reason why Sakamoto's next Metroid game was co-developed by Team Ninja. Metroid Other M came out in 2010 on the Wii to a decidedly mixed reception. According to Sakamoto and copious rumors from the era, that wasn't the only Metroid game Sakamoto tried to make during that time period. In 2005, the year after the release of Metroid Zero Mission, Game Informer and IGN both reported on the existence of a new Metroid game called Metroid Dread. It was purported to be a follow-up to Metroid Fusion, building on the story of that 2002 Game Boy Advance game. The major difference from the GBA games was that this would have been a dual-screen experience for the Nintendo DS. After some occasional rumory chatter over the next 2 years, speculation about Dread sprouted back up when Metroid Prime 3 Corruption came out on Wii in 2007. A scannable log on the Space Pirate homeworld made a reference to Project Metroid Dread being near completion. That led to Nintendo having to make an official statement weeks after Prime's launch stating, Nintendo is not making the 2D Metroid at this point in time. Supposedly, the inclusion of this reference was just a joke by Retro Studios, and it was even removed from the Japanese version of Prime 3. Still, Metroid Dread kept floating around during the late 2000s as a potential DS entry in Sakamoto's story. He confirmed the existence of the game a few times over the years, mentioning it in a 2009 interview with IGN that, as a concept, the Metroid Dread idea does still exist within my mind, so maybe sometime in the future, I will be able to bring it to you. That wasn't even the only interview where Sakamoto gamely answered Dread questions. He confirmed during the development of Metroid Other M that Other M was not Metroid Dread. It was meant to be a completely different game and story. Sakamoto also went on to explain how Metroid Dread was an actual real thing at one point, and that if he were to ever come back to it, he would start from scratch. The full truth is out there somewhere, but from what I've heard over the years, my theory on Dread is that post-Zero Mission, the team from R&D 1 that moved to SPD tried to get another 2D Metroid off the ground on DS, but the game was a struggle to get far along in development. They, after all, were now part of a Nintendo that was meant to be working with outside partners. They needed a co-developer to make a new Metroid, especially on a new platform. This paralleled what happened to the franchise during the Nintendo 64 days, when Sakamoto couldn't figure out how to make a 3D Metroid, and Nintendo was never able to find a company to work on the game until Retro Studios. It's also worth pointing out that at this point, the Sakamoto Metroid games were basically completely different from the Metroid Prime series, which was vibrant on DS with spin-offs like Metroid Prime Pinball and Metroid Prime Hunters. The developer of Hunters was NST, an American studio now best known for their work on the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series and assisting on Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. According to game reporter Liam Robertson, NST might have been working on Metroid Dread with Sakamoto, but those plans evaporated quickly. The idea of Dread sat there for years. It was apparently a fully written story, according to IGN's Craig Harris, but it seemed like it was meant to be a 2D DS game, which, when Nintendo partnered with Team Ninja for a Metroid game on Wii, didn't align with Team Ninja's specialties. Ergo, Team Ninja made Other M, which was a weird fusion of some 2D elements with the 3D action the studio was known for. Metroid Dread faded away. much like the Metroid series in general, until Sakamoto returned in 2017 with another 2D Metroid game. He found a development partner in Mercury Steam, and they worked to remake Metroid 2 as Metroid Samus Returns on 3DS. When Sakamoto was out for interviews for Samus Returns, Dread came up on occasion. He repeatedly stated Samus Returns had no ties to Dread, but in a way, it did. Samus Returns was the gateway to finding a developer that Sakamoto could work with on bringing his vision of Metroid Dread to life. Sakamoto added some color to what exactly happened to Metroid Dread during the DS era during the Nintendo Treehouse Live for E3 2021. He felt his concept couldn't be brought to life due to the technology of the time, so he put the idea on hold. Apparently, there was another time when Dread was going to be made in the late 2000s, but Sakamoto once again thought his vision couldn't be realized. It really makes you think what other secrets might be in this game aside from Samus being pursued by Emi. Ultimately, Sakamoto had given up hope, but Mercury Steam turned out to be the perfect partner for his vision. According to Sakamoto, Metroid Dread will mark the end of this Metroid saga that he started back in 1986. He stressed that this is the end of that arc about Samus and Metroids. It's been a long time since Metroid Fusion, but after 19 years, we will finally get a conclusion to this story. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Nintendo World Report TV. We have a whole playlist full of videos on the history of the Metroid franchise, so take a look at that as well when you're done with this video. Of course, you can check out NintendoWorldReport.com for a whole lot more. You can join our Discord to chat with us using the link in the description, and stick around for information on our Patreon. This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.